So welcome to the Aaron Werner podcast on iCode Media. I have a longtime first business acquaintance, and then we were coworkers and have grown into a friendship. And now I'm jealous because David Edler is retired and doing everything that he wants to do in life. And so when I grow up, I want to be David. And actually, you're not in your hometown right now. You are cycling somewhere, right? Where are you, David?
Well, I'm actually in Frisco, Colorado, and I need to go see Jim. So I passed your office, and it looks great. The logo's fantastic, and I promise I'm here for 2 weeks, and I will stop in. But I'm in Frisco, actually at the Frisco Library, and if I lean this way, you can see the mountains in the reflection of the television here in the conference room.
Very nice, gorgeous. Yeah. Well, I'm jealous. We're still here working, holding down the fort. I'm glad you're out enjoying the fruits of all your labor. So David and I worked together in Vision Source. That's where I first got to know you. And there's not there's very few people that haven't owned practices that understand practice ownership as well as you did, because I think you've pretty much seen it all.
I've seen a lot of practices, yeah. And I mean, actually, starting in I started with a contact lens company, Wesley Justin, in 1985, and I used to contact practices by phone. And then I went out to Albany, New York, and I spent some time in upstate New York seeing practices. I met Al Moyer in New York as a rep, as a contact lens rep. Before actually a lot of the guys up there I met. And that's when I first started going into practices. But I didn't really understand practices, I think, until I joined Vision Source. Because when you join as a vendor rep and you get hired by Vision Source, you move to the practice side of the table. And all of a sudden, my peers were treating me like the customer, which was a new thing. And then I had to understand, step by step, what was going on in this practice and what was driving it. Because when you're a contact lens rep, what is it, 10% maybe, 10% of your business? I mean, and we think and I was selling colored lenses, so it was like 3% of your business, maybe. and now we're looking at the whole thing. And I was totally blessed, so grateful for the 18 years I spent with Vision Source. It was terrific. And I learned so much about it, and learning from guys like you, Aaron, who were gracious enough to open up and share the secrets of the trade. I mean, listening to Mickey Kling and Lori Sorensen and just absorbing it and becoming a student of the game. I always like to tell the DMDs I worked with, be a student of the game, figure out what's going on there, and how it works and how we fit in. And that's I think that's the secret to do this. And when you're introducing new people to Vision Source, we're working step by step to bring them along to join us. We're not selling you. We're not pushing you into something you don't want to do. We're taking you where you need to go. It's just a question: can we show you that's where you need to go? Yep.
So, well, I love it. Even retired, the passion still is there, and it's wonderful to see. And I think that's important whether you're joining Vision Source or any group, right? The community is important. Being able to not buy in a sense that I'm paying money and now I'm here, but buying in as a culture, right? I'm all in with me and my heart and soul, which clearly you are. So what I wanted to talk about today, David, is what you are really good at, and what I think has become a lost art. And that's the art of storytelling. And I don't know if we've lost it because of keyboards or cell phones and abbreviated text, or if videos, being able to take videos and pictures with our phones and send those as opposed to communicate verbally with words has lost. But that's an art form that you've really mastered, and not in a sense of, hey kids, sit down, I'm going to tell you a story, but as you communicate via storytelling. So help us dive into that.
It's funny, Aaron. I mean, I think storytelling's alive and well, and I think we tell it all the time when we do it well. And I think it's all a question of. And I'm going to take it from a sales point of view. And I think none of us out there, and I say us, I mean you, practice owning optometrists, don't want to think of yourself as salespeople. And I used to talk to my salespeople in the same sense. we're on a journey. And everyone who comes into your practice is on a journey. Employees are on a journey coming into an organization, and patients are on a care journey. And it depends on what they need as to where you're going to go, and you're going to tell them stories along the way. I know when I was first hired by WJ, Wesley Jessen, right? You know them.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
So Newton Wesley was, like you, he was a professor at ICO. And his student was, like you, it was George Jessen. But this is the story they told us, and I think it's a great story they told new employees. Wesley had keratoconus, and at that time, when he had it, there wasn't a contact lens treatment for it. And Jessen started fashioning a corneal contact lens on a sewing machine with Newton to reverse his keratoconus. And this was the journey, the trial and error, the working nights on Kenmore Avenue. And I know exactly where the 3 Flat is. It's off Kenmore Avenue near Foster. And they worked in the basement, and he had a Singer sewing machine, and they would craft it and craft it and craft it and craft it, and finally they used it, and it reversed his keratoconus. It saved his sight, and from that invention was born this company.
Wow.
And when you hear that story, when you get hired, it's like, whoa, I want to be here. I want to be a part of this. So the thing about the story was the saving the sight. It's very similar to Glenn, starting Vision Source. I mean, obviously we want to have wildly successful practices, but he started it so independent practices could have the same advantage as like Texas State Optical, who was buying huge ads in the Yellow Pages. We used to tell the Yellow Page ad when we would explain Vision Source to people. So the story is the struggle. It's Newton and George inventing, saving his sight. That's the struggle. Here's the company. It's Glenn going, how come those guys can have an ad in the Yellow Pages that's a full page and I can't? And how can I solve that? And he solves it by banding together. Now all of a sudden we're sharing ideas, we're getting better together, and we're the third most known name in optical in Houston really quickly.
Yep.
That's the story. And when you remember that, it's like, hey, I want to be part of these guys. And that's never lost, because you go to because they took it to each city, and in each city it's the same thing happened. In Philadelphia, they wanted to do the same thing. Up in Seattle, they wanted to do it. In San Diego, they surely wanted to do it. You guys in San Diego created that fantastic organization, and just really embraced it. California style. Wasn't the same style as they did in, right? Not like they did there, but then that's your story. That's what you go when you guys go into a new practitioner in San Diego. You tell the San Diego story.
Yeah,
and it's great. And I think your counterpart out there, Mr. Hansen, really understands that. He really embraces that. I mean, he grew up with you out there, and I think you guys really. Not to say really, I hate when I say really, but it's very important that we have that. So, I mean, you just see that my talking about this, whenever you're choosing to tell a story, anyone out there, any practice telling a story, it's not perfect. You're not the hero when you tell it. It's not once upon a time. You're basically grasping the why. It's the old Simon Sinek thing. You're grasping why they did it. And at the end of a story, we should feel the storyteller, the main character, should be grateful it happened. And I think that's the thing. Saving Wesley's sight. Wow, I'm grateful that happened. Oh, and by the way, they formed this amazing corneal contact lens company, and they now sell soft lenses. And that, see, that's what we're doing here. So when you're thinking about writing a story, you have your initial event, you have rising action. Well, you have the initiating event, rising action, and then you have the main event, curing blindness, and then we slope down to the resolution, and then we're ready to move on. So you can make a story up, about your practice and welcoming new employees to it. You can also look at that patient journey, and if there's a certain visual condition you're looking to look for a solution, there's going to be a story that goes along with that. And again, there's gratitude that happens. It doesn't get into how much more above my insurance is it going to cost. It's going to be, does it solve my problem? Does it give me that happy ending that your story's telling me? That was a long answer. I'm not gonna.
That was a long answer, but it was a fantastic answer, and it made me remember on my grade school, having to write a story, all the different parts of a story, and breaking it apart. So before I want to get into really diving into the different parts of a story, but let's talk about the importance of a story, because I think too often we both know optometry very well, the business of it, so we'll focus on it, but it feels very transactional at times. You brought up the insurance, right? Here's what you need, here's how much you should pay. And I've got these 2 to 3 options, here's the different costs for each of them. Even when sometimes we're trying to treat like glaucoma diseases, right? You have glaucoma, you can go blind, you need to use these drops every day. It's very transactional, at least in my mind. And I think some of the non-compliance that we see is probably because somebody hasn't bought into the story that we're not telling, that we should be telling, right? Mm-hmm. They're not buying the transactional sale that we're giving. So what's the power of a story?
Well, okay, let's do a couple things. One, are we afraid, or are we hesitant to suggest this treatment for fear that our patient will reject it? Or is our patient not compliant? Where do you want to start with that?
Oh, let's tackle both of them. Let's tackle the first one first.
Let's do the first one first, because that may be when you first start delving into medical, right? And now, and it's, we're switching from VSP or IMED or whatever to Blue Cross, right? Yep. We're making the switch, and it's going to be different, and there are going to be some different costs that are going on, right? So that takes a little bravery to get that done. Okay, I'm going to have to tell you a story now.
Please.
So when I was, this is the truth about David Edler. I was a theater kid, and I got hired by Wesley Jessen, and then eventually by Vision Source. And everything I learned, everything I used in business, I learned in the theater, except for those things I learned coaching house league baseball. But here's what I got. We were at summer stock. We were 23 years old. A friend of mine sent me this list called the 10 Rules of Show Business, and we read it. We thought that was hilarious. We thought it was the funniest thing we ever read. But I kept it, and as I kind of went on, I started thinking of these rules. I started using them, and when I started working for Vision Source, I pulled it out and said, "Holy cow, these all work!" Because he sent me that list because he was trying to tell me at 23, because he'd figured it out. We're entrepreneurs. We're a business. Forget about Shakespeare in the Park, dude. You're in a business. And when you first came to Chicago, it's like what I did. I immediately went out. I got a job with a Shakespeare company. I'm playing the Duke and As You Like It. Man, I'm with the best actors in Chicago. My professors are so impressed with me. And my friend Frank, he's dressed up like a lottery ball out at Daily Plaza, and we're kind of laughing at him, but he's getting paid. And rule number 1 in the 10 Rules of Show Business is take the money. Take the money. Well, I don't want to feed the competition, so I'm not going to take IMED. No, take the money. Take the money. And when you go to the workshop and they're telling you about IMED and there's a buffet, eat when you can. That's rule number 2. So take the money and eat when you can. Empower yourself to take the money. I've been in a meeting. I've heard John McCall talk about new technologies, and he always would say, "You guys want to make money?" I mean, I want to make money, but he would actually say it. And I don't want to be crass. I mean, we're medical professionals and we want to solve the problem, which is why I talk about the journey, which is why I talk about making sure you're telling that stories. But at the end of the day, you're running a business and you're taking care of your family. And in Vision Source, you're making sure that business is awesome. So take the money.
Yep.
Take the money. And if there's food, eat when you can. That's nice. Number 1. Number 2, number 2, to get them to comply. That's a little tougher, right? I mean, I guess I would assume that some of the things you're going to tell them, and I'm thinking about the medical advice I would have been given is the things that could happen to you if you don't comply.
Yep.
And so I would hope that there is a story that we can tell about someone perhaps who didn't comply for a while and then complied and came back. or there's always that story that they didn't comply and vision was lost, if that's that's the thing, or compromised, and that's why this is important. It doesn't seem important now, but daily, if we're talking about a daily treatment, a drop they're putting in, the importance of doing that, they have to own that importance.
Yep.
The life-changing moment for me a few years ago, and I'll talk about myself for a second, was I suffered a TIA. I had a mini stroke, and I used to be a little heavier than this, Aaron. I think you remember.
I remember. And
when that happened, I changed my life. I changed my patterns. I adapted everything and wouldn't quit. Now it's been 2 years, and I'm getting in better and better shape every day, because basically my neurologist came in and said, if you don't, you're going to have a worse stroke. You will have a worse stroke. And when I had that stroke, they showed me a picture of two guys playing baseball, and I couldn't say what it was. And that's my favorite thing. And I couldn't remember the people on my team, and my wife was with me, and I was trying to remember it, and the hospital staff was saying, "Mr. Edler, we need you to focus." But I was so frustrated. I was so frustrated that I couldn't remember the people who worked for me. So I think a story like that to a patient, you don't want to scare the living daylights out of them, but I think you want to make sure they understand that this is that we're doing this for your benefit. We're doing this for your personal health and well-being.
Yeah.
And
is it fair to say that then we're through the story on trying to convince them to understand the disease and accept treatment is really humanizing the condition, the treatment. I know in school, we read studies and we take tests, and it's again very transactional, and which is important.
Yeah,
but I've learned that
right.
quoting those to patients.
I love that, Aaron. It's a great way of thinking about it. Humanize it. Yeah, take the study you have, and give it a human quality. If you have an actual case study you can cite, a real life story you can cite it. Yeah. I would go. I went outside the lines and talked about a different thing altogether. But this is why you want to get into a daily regimen and take care of yourself every single day.
Oh,
but humanize it. That's a perfect way of saying it.
So let me ask you this, as someone who's very good at storytelling, because it's one thing for me to tell a story about let's say I'm talking to Joe, who I've just diagnosed with glaucoma, and I'm telling the story about Mary, who also has glaucoma. How do I bring Joe into the story so it shifts from being all about Mary to being all about Joe? Because you started at the beginning saying everybody's on a journey. Right, my staff's on a journey, my patient's on a journey. So Joe's on a journey. We just threw the glaucoma ogre into the journey. Now he's got to fight it. So how do I help bring him into this is his story by referencing experiences with others?
What's his first step? Because he's not going to be able to solve this immediately. I mean, I couldn't leave the hospital and be well. It was going to be a slog. So what's the first step? So think of ourselves when we're telling the story. We think of ourselves as we're on a mountain climb with our patient, and they're taking steps up the hill, and we're going to make sure that the next step they take is certain, and we're going to take that step with them. So those first initial steps, you're going to be right with them. Maybe your staff is, maybe someone's going to be following up with them and help them establish that habit. What's the old thing? Exercise guys know this. In 30 days, it takes 30 days to establish a habit. So maybe the procedure, maybe the journey procedure in the office is, okay, we saw Joe on this date. Here's his 30-day cycle. Let's see how. Let's check up with him at 15 or 30 and see if he's on this. Make sure his next step is secure. And I think you got to go step by step. And I think probably the scary thing is or the intimidating thing is that all of a sudden we have to do this thing.
Mm-hmm. You have to do this thing. So in that sense, that the story I'm telling him right now is maybe a story of where we've come, the long version of where we're going. But hey, this is what we've got right in front of us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's like you're training. And there's positive reinforcement. So if he's if he's doing a zero job, then you got to start from the beginning. But if he's doing it some of the time, and he's doing a little bit, you encourage what's going well, and then try to get him to make those next steps, and then check up.
Yep.
Somehow check up on him. Maybe his wife can check up on his employee. That's a lot to ask of your office staff, to be checking up on all of your patients.
Of course,
it's very difficult. But I think it's going to be up to it's going to be up to him. And the more that is internalized, the bigger it is. I was sitting next to a guy who actually is losing his sight because he developed glaucoma. He's losing it. It's getting worse and worse and worse. And he was talking about his inability to play. He can't play tennis anymore. He's still playing golf, but he loses sight, and it's gone down that. It's gone too far. He's losing it, and that's a story. I mean, if you don't care for this, you're going to lose the ability to do the things you love.
Yeah.
So maybe that's something we remind Joe of, and make sure that, hey, this is why you're progressing on this.
Yeah. Which is a lot different than just you're losing a certain percentage of your visual field. That's not overly sexy, right? You're losing your ability to play golf.
But if you can't play golf anymore,
yeah,
or tennis, or if you have this guy had a blind spot, and it's like, how do you drive? He's going to give up driving eventually. He's not going to be self-sufficient, and he's younger than me. And it was,
That's scary.
Yeah.
I'm curious. We talked about patient conditions, but how do you see stories being used? Staff turnover and new staff and new doctors and new patients to our practice are important in the lifeblood of the practice, right? We need our teams. We need our patients. How do you see stories being utilized to bolster and drive business sense, to build loyalty, to share, our mission, hopefully have a shared mission?
I think that, you guys have regular meetings, and when you have regular meetings, you have huddles on Monday, and everybody's there, and you know your processes, you know your KPIs, and you're tracking to those. I think that those are we're on the patient journey now. We're doing those daily things to get things done, but occasionally chaos will reign.
Yep.
I'm going to use the DMD team quickly on this one. When the pandemic hit, these guys could not go out and see people. They couldn't. They weren't allowed to. They could only communicate like we are on video or by telephone. Now, if you know someone, I know you, I can get on a video, we can have a great conversation. But they're trying to meet new people and they can't, and their frustration level is really high. Now you got to be clever, you got to work at it. It takes a little bit longer, but that's very tactical. That's very prescriptive. Okay, so I told them this story, and I would tell them different stories every week to try to get them in place. But this story I particularly like telling them, and this has nothing to do with our business. But I don't know. There's a jazz pianist named Keith Jarrett. Have you heard of Keith Jarrett? Mm-hmm. Okay. Yep. He made there's a concert. He used to do improvised concerts all across Europe, and one particular concert is the Cologne concert in Germany. And it's a well-known recording, but the story behind it is incredible because this Vera Brandes, who was 18 years old, youngest jazz producer in Germany, had arranged for Keith Jarrett to come to town. And there was a problem with the plane. He had to drive all the way from Bern to get there, and his back was killing him. He gets in there, and Vera thinks she's sold the place out, right? Yep. The opera house, it's sold out. And she's followed his orders. She's gotten exactly the right piano, exactly the instructions with this specific piano. So she has it. It's on stage. Jarrett comes limping in with his assistant, and he looks at the piano, and it's the right brand, but the stage crew didn't understand, and they took the rehearsal piano from downstairs. Oh. And the piano wasn't tuned. And not only wasn't tuned, it was tinny in the middle, and the bass was just sounded pukey, and the upper register was plinky. And he played it a little bit, and he said he could not play it. I'm not going on tonight. So Vera is, she's frantic, she's panicking. She said, we'll do something. We'll get you the other piano. We'll figure something out. And she distracts him and gets him to go to dinner. and she gets a guy in there to tune it. That's going to take over an hour to get it in tune. She checks other places. There's a piano that would matches what he needs, but it's down the street. Now, her friends, she couldn't get a piano mover that day, but she could get her friends to roll it down, but it was pouring down rain, and she didn't have insurance to cover that piano. So they're going to tune this piece of crap little bitty piano, which was not loud enough to cover the noise to get to the back of the house. And he comes back in after leaving, and he plays the retuned piano, and he's still, it's just not, I mean, it's in tune, but still. And he says, I'm not playing. And he walks back, and he gets into his car. She goes out in the pouring rain, and she's begging him. And he goes, okay, for you, I do it. And he goes back in, and that recording is amazing. And if you listen to it, you can hear him moaning. He has to play different riffs on the bottom, riffs that he didn't really play before, and he's having to use judiciously the upper register. This is it's magic. And when he was done playing, I mean, the audience, the applause is left on the recording. It is just thunderous. It lasts for a long time. It is the #1 selling live jazz album, recorded in 1975. It is still the #1 album.
Wow.
He made amazing art out of a mess. So yeah, you're being asked to go out and sell when you can't sell. You're being asked to go out and see people on camera and on the phone when you're used to meeting them and feeling their energy in person. But you gotta tap into your inner Keith Jarrett, and you've got to bring this. And we didn't make our prescribed number that year, but the West region pulled a lot out. We had a good year, relatively speaking.
Right.
And there were some amazing performances that came out of that. And I hope that story motivated them. But I think just telling a story about how someone attacked a mess and made it happen, that story inspires me forever. And keep your eyes out. A film of that story is coming out in the winter of this year.
Fantastic.
It is coming out. But again, the idea was I distracted them. Hopefully, I spellbound you a little bit with the story.
Yep.
Right? So I mean, the thing is that you okay. I hear this, I feel this. Okay, now you be Keith Jarrett, and you know what? It's not easy. And he wasn't going to do it. And he went to dinner, and his back's killing him. He doesn't know what to do, and he's playing different things, and he doesn't know and you don't know if it's going to work. You don't know they're going to say yes. You don't know if they'll ever even come to the phone. But you're gonna give it your best effort because you're an artist, because you're good at this. You're gonna get your innermost professional self, and you're gonna make it happen. So you can do similar things with your staff, and you got to have a good story to tell them.
Yeah, I think that's huge. One of my favorite authors, John Acuff, talks about soundtracks, and it's stories we tell ourselves, or the soundtracks we play in our own head. And what that did, just listening to that story did for me, was it remind me that if somebody else could overcome something huge, well, why can't I? Right? It almost lowers that barrier. And I'm not a musician. I wish I was. I was told when I try to sing, I sing one note, and it's not even really a note. It's off key. But I am a runner, and Roger Bannister was the first person to break the 4-minute mile, which previously was thought to be impossible to do. And I don't have the stats in front of me, but it was unbroken forever. As soon as he broke it, lots of other people started breaking it, because the story of him doing it, the recognition, in which case, both these cases happen to be true stories, but it made it accessible to other people to achieve that.
The Myopia Collective. Cooper Vision and the AOA have partnered in a groundbreaking initiative to change the way optometrists in the U.S. treat children with myopia. The purpose of the Myopia Collective is to rally the profession of optometry and its allies to interrupt the status quo and elevate the new standard of care for children with myopia. Every individual is encouraged to become a member of the collective. By joining, you commit to taking action to help slow the progression of myopia in children. You'll receive updates and information about the collective and its work in the fight against myopia, gain access to educational opportunities and resources offered by the collective, and hear from change agents, the ambassador optometrists selected to serve as advocates for community and policy change that facilitates the mission of the collective. Scan the QR code or click on the link in the show notes to join the collective today.
Hey there, eye care professionals. Are you ready to elevate your patient's visual performance to the next level? Introducing Vision Edge Pro, the ultimate visual performance supplement. Vision Edge Pro is packed with mesozeaxanthin, lutein, and zeaxanthin in a precise 10-10-2 ratio. This powerful blend has been clinically shown to increase macular pigment density, enhancing key aspects of visual performance like contrast sensitivity and vision and glare. But that's not all. Vision Edge Pro also includes 300 milligrams of DHA and EPA, meeting the daily requirements for omega-3s as recognized by leading health organizations. This means your patients get comprehensive eye health support in one easy supplement. Whether they're driving at night, working on screens, or enjoying the great outdoors, Vision Edge Pro helps them see clearer and live better. So why wait? Recommend Vision Edge Pro to your patients today and help them achieve their best vision ever. Contact your local MacuHealth representative for more information, and to be sure to use code PODCAST2024, that's PODCAST 2024 at checkout on MacuHealth.com for special discounts. Vision Edge Pro, where clearer vision meets enhanced performance.
Yeah, I was thinking about John actually when I was thinking about these kinds of things, because I think he's good at addressing that. I always think, and he says this, and I say it in a different way. I'd rather have a B- plan out there running than an A+ plan that is continually being worked and worked and reworked and worked. Mm-hmm. And what Jared had was a D-, and he turned it into amazing. But that's, I was thinking about him actually when I was thinking about that, rethinking about that story recently, knowing I was going to come on here. I was thinking about that moment, because I always thought that was a time where you're asking people to do something that is thought to be impossible.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Which brings me another thought. How, as a storyteller, how do you use stories? How do you see stories as ways to build connections and bridges, both in business and in personal life, just build relationships? You know, you're sitting on an airplane, we can all ask about the weather and talk about kids and look through pictures, but that doesn't build relationships. So how do you utilize storytelling to really connect with people?
Individually, I think as we talk, we'll tell stories about our lives. I think that, and I think that if I tell a story and I'm always the hero and it's always working out great, those stories suck. Sorry, but they're just not. They're not working. It's right. Better when you're telling a story about some abject failure that it really works. There's one that just happened here during this trip, and it would have to come up in the conversation. We were talking about things that didn't go right, but they told me, David, put gas in the car, because we drove from Chicago out here, and we were in Iowa, and there was ethanol gas. So I put ethanol in the car. So it didn't really take effect until we left Denver, coming up the mountain, and the car, he's flooring it, and it's not going. And someone said, maybe we put the wrong gas in the car, and my heart just sank. And when you tell a story like that, I mean, it's an honest mistake that I made. Now, thank God we got to a gas station, we got the better gas in it, and it's running fine now. The engine's hot, everything is okay. I am somewhat forgiven, although I have a new nickname, E85. But yeah. Other than that, But so I'm telling that story with you because I want people to know when I'm meeting the other people that mistakes are what makes us interesting. Our lives are a successful life is built on a series of bad decisions a lot of times. And there's nothing. It's nothing to be ashamed of your bad decisions, and oftentimes, I like to tell stories about some of my really bad decisions because I think it humanizes me, but it also gives other people permission to think of their bad decisions and things that didn't go well, because then you can come up out of that, and do more and be and then hopefully it gives permission. It gives the permission for the other person to tell me a story about how they messed up.
Yeah. So it's failure is certain. Right? We all fail. I like your comments about how life is just a series of seemingly bad decisions. Hopefully not the same bad decision or intentionally a bad decision, but I'm sure those are in there too.
No, if you make the same, insanity is the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results. But it's okay to make a mistake. If you don't make a mistake, you're not going to learn. You're not. The 10 rules of show business. In my business life, I'm halfway through doing something frustrated, and I go, oh shoot, that was. Never turn your back on a producer. That's what that was. I should have known that. If I had known that going in, if I'd approached this the right way, I wouldn't have had this problem. So it's not. I think a matter of recognizing when we're not doing it perfectly and learning from our mistakes and doing it well the second time. Yeah.
Well, I'm intrigued by the story of you coming from a theater background. I think that adds a huge another layer of positive complexity. I wish I would have had some of that training, and we've done some improv training. And these 10 rules of show business are also very intriguing. So I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit. If not, I can Google real quick. But the 10 rules, the first one you said, take the money, right? Which there's going to be an asterisk, right? Ethically take the money. When you have an opportunity, take the opportunity.
Right.
Eat when you can.
Right.
That's very similar to my military friends saying sleep when you can.
Okay,
right?
Okay, let me keep you going then. Nothing's in the bag, so keep your day job. Or trust Allah but time up the camel. So right? So
yep.
This is a professional thing. I remember when I was at Wesley Justin, when I first interviewed at Wesley Justin, I looked like this. I had a tweed jacket. I was doing Shakespeare, and I was out of work, and I needed my money. It's a silly story that gets me in there, but I was doing real estate. They were paying me cash, and I didn't realize I was supposed to be filing quarterly taxes. And after 2 years, my broker said, "Did you file your quarterly taxes?" And I said, "My what?" So at that point, I knew I had to get a regular job. So they wouldn't hire me for sales when I first went in, and I think they judged me how I looked. So, but the second time a job came open, I interviewed again. They still didn't give it to me, and I had told everybody in the sales force that I was going to get this job. So that's an example of nothing's in the bag, so keep your day job. Number 4 is never screw the stage manager, or never do the stage manager dirty. And the stage manager the stage manager is the person that makes sure they call places. They make sure that you are there on time. Then when they're making sure everybody's there before they say the show's going on. We all have stage managers in our lives. Practice owners, you have stage managers. Don't make sure your stage manager is not going to what's the thing? Be maliciously compliant. It's showtime. It's showtime. Too bad. Oh, David's not here. Oh, too bad. Oh, first patient. Oh, he's not here. Too bad. Make sure that if they're don't let them get upset with you. Never turn your back on a producer. And producers are the people who fund things. And I think this is too negative. So the way I look at this is it's a basketball analogy. If Ken Harden is watching, he'll appreciate it, or anybody who's played basketball. You played basketball, didn't you?
I tried. I'm not very good. I was a wrestler.
Oh, well, okay. So the point guard in basketball, you run the pick and roll, right?
Yep.
And I was in 8th grade basketball, and we're running the pick and roll. We learned the pick and roll, but we're running a different drill. But the second team, we decide we're going to try to make a name for ourselves. We're going to run the pick and roll while they're doing this drill. Yeah, let's do it. So I go up and I set the screen for the point guard. He goes off, and I roll, but I roll the wrong way. I roll away from the point guard, the producer, and he throws the pass that hits me in the back of the head. Coach said, "Nice try, boys." So we're still in the second team, but we had a nice try. So what you're supposed to do is you're supposed to turn toward and keep your eye on the producer to get the pass. So always keep your eye on the producer. Your partner, who's your producer, make sure you know where they are.
Yep.
Number six I love, and this is one that is a Vision Source. This is a Vision Source staple. And we talked about failure. This is a staple for that. Leave yourself alone and learn and work to be better. Leave yourself alone and work to be better. And as an actor, you can't beat yourself up. And one of the things you learn as a director is you can't micromanage an actor. And if you do, they will lose their confidence and they'll be going step by step by step by step. Same thing is true when you work with your employees. Everything I learned in the theater. If you micromanage a salesperson, you will defeat their confidence. They have to feel like they invented that product themselves. Actors need to feel like they wrote that play themselves. So as individuals, as doctors, as business owners, you need to leave yourself alone, but work to be better. So don't lose your critical voice, but don't let it rule you. The next one, I love this one. Never share a vast idea with a half-vast person. Okay. See, we laughed at that when we were 23. We thought it was the funniest thing we ever saw. But here's what that means in my mind. If I go to a doctor who's thinking about joining Vision Source, and we tell them, hey, it's 2.5% of your adjusted gross, first thing, it's this, and this, and that, and we're telling them all those kinds of things, they're not ready to hear us. Or we tell them, hey, this exchange, it's the greatest thing ever, you got to come, it's food, and we tell them all about that stuff, and they don't come, right? That's because we shared a half-vast idea and they weren't ready to hear it. It's our responsibility to make sure they're not half-vast. So there aren't stupid people in the world, there are people who aren't ready to hear our message, and that's part of taking them down the journey.
Well, that's very applicable in our worlds. It's especially with some of the new technologies we've seen bringing in. You know, we're excited about something, but we're talking at level 10, and patient or customer we're talking to is, they haven't even heard about it before. Myopia management is one of the biggest ones I've seen recently.
Absolutely.
Right, we're excited about it. I went to a class. I've got the products. I've got the treatments. I'm ready to go. But this is the first time mom's ever hearing about something.
Right.
Right.
I went through the other ones so you didn't get a chance to respond to them. Here's the one that really gets to actors all the time. You never forget what they've done to you, but you never let them know you remember.
Oh.
Which is dark, but at the same time, it doesn't help us to hold a grudge in life. No. If a patient misses an appointment, for instance, we don't want to forget. When we schedule them, we don't let them know we remember. I mean, I guess you can charge them after a while. Maybe that's not a good example, but
that falls under the forgive but don't forget, right? Right? And my first thought, because you said that was dark, my first thought was kind of like that, but I think that's putting your game face on, right? At any point in time, we're all going to be offended. Right, we're all going to feel somebody has wronged us or that we were on the wrong side of the unfair line. But the more that you feed that beast, the worse it gets.
Yeah,
I like that game face.
Yeah, and I'm going to do all of our DMDs a favor here, and because I'm going to talk to all the doctors, all the people who've done a refer a friend, all the administrators who've asked their best friend, and their best friend said, "I'm not joining Vision Source. Never ask me again." Never forget what they did to you, but never let them know you remember.
Yeah.
And you know what? They're going to come to the exchange someday, and they're going to be in Vision Source, and never let them know, never rub it in that they waited too long. Welcome into the family and take the next step. Be the bigger person.
Oh, absolutely. And for those who are listening that aren't Vision Source, DMDs that David's referring to, those are our Vision Source's field team, right? Those are the folks out in the field, jacks of all trades, experts at most, really. They get called everything from, I'm having a concern with the vendor, to maybe a rebate structure is not working, to, hey, I need help training somebody new, right? I need help implementing this program or that program in the practice. So that team really covers a lot of ground and a wide, vast array of topics. So I want to make sure that everybody knew that reference and what that role was.
Yeah, so but basically in my role, I led those guys. So for a while, I was only that guy. It was just a bunch of us. I was one of I was one of the first non-ODs brought in to do this, and Harvey Hanlon taught me everything I knew. I would not have known how to do this had it not been for Harvey. The next one is never underestimate the bad taste of the artistically pretentious.
Okay, break that down for me because there was a lot of big words.
Okay, never underestimate the bad taste of the artistically pretentious. Here's the theater example. Mm-hmm. Okay, do you know the play The Fantastics?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, it's a cute little play. It's done usually in a black box, and it's a Romeo and Juliet story, and it's so beautiful and perfect and lovely. I was cast in that play, and the director decided they were going to do it in an insane asylum.
Oh.
But not like Marat Sade with their where they're actors who are patients and they're trying to do the play. No, we were like 1,000 monkeys with 100 typewriters trying to write all the works of William Shakespeare. It was pretentious beyond pretension. It was horrible. I did the show because they promised me a nice role in the next show. So but I guess I wouldn't have accepted it had I known. But never underestimate it. You ask first, make sure, if you might get into a situation you don't want to be in. It could be a job, it could be any number of things.
Got it. So what was the outcome? What was the end of that story, that your play that ended up
the old rule in Chicago is if the audience ever outnumbered the cast, you could cancel the show. And they didn't do that. We must have had 13 in the cast, but I think a dozen people showed up. So they left us on stage during intermission, so we didn't get an intermission. We had to be still doing our stuff. It was awful on stage. So when the last audience member left, we broke character and just ran all over the theater, and it was very funny.
I'll bet.
What happened was they never did the next show. They canceled it. And I ended up leaving the company for a while, and they called me back to do a replacement role. And then at that time after I took I ended up it led me to directing my full-length play in Chicago, and I directed the production of Jacques Brel's Alive and Well and Living in Paris, which actually was recommended for a Jeff Award, which is the Chicago Tony. And it was that show that that's when my money was like totally out, and Wesley Jessen finally offered me the position out in New York, and I said, okay, I'm quitting this and I'm going to go do this, and I'll someday come back. And I never came back because I ended up really enjoying working with optometrists. So it was great, and I'm not hurrying back in to do the theater, honestly. I have one last 10th, number 10, yep. And y'all can take this home with you. Fame is what others give to you. Success is what you give yourself. So when you're thinking about, and any of us who went through what I went through, you think about fame. It's what other people say about you. If you shouldn't let that. You shouldn't be looking outward. Social media is oftentimes our worst enemy, but fame is what others give to you. Success is what you give to yourself.
Oh, I like that. So that's the story we tell ourselves, right? That's the how we feel about ourselves.
Right.
So if I want to get better at storytelling, and listening to these rules and listening to the stories that you've got to go along with them, how do I do that?
Well, the rules are more just, I think, to put in perspective things we have in life. But if you're going to tell stories, I think you figure out those moments that where you want to stop being tactical and clinical, and you want to express something that's metaphorical, that lets them see things in a different light. So first, there's a purpose for doing it, which is why I say, look at your journey. Look at the journey that your employee, that your patient, and every patient has a different journey. They're all different. And then you develop your stories from there. But when you develop a story, you can either pick a story out that you heard another person tell, like the Keith Jarrett story. I know that because I read about it. But if I'm going to tell a story about myself, and I think my own my own experience is going to speak to this. I'm going to say, okay, what's the initiating event of this story, and then what's the build? How can I build the up to the climax? And there are certain scenes, and I like to think of it as basically 3 or 4 scenes up to the event, and then we're going to move down to the resolution. So if I'm thinking of Newton and George story is a true story. He has keratoconus. He's a student that's gifted in this. They decide to start making it. Then there's a story of the trial and error and the sewing machine, and until we get to finally it works. And finding it works, it's like, wow, we can share this with others, and now we have a company. So it starts here, it goes up to the event, then it goes down. So I think picking what that story is and how it fits into your to your narrative or to your situation, that is that's something that you're going to have to decide, what it is. What I'm doing right now in my spare time as I'm developing Edler Communications is I am actually writing stories. And I'm telling them at different live events in Chicago, and then I'm saving these stories. And I have a bunch I've written and told before, and I'm going to start putting them together, and then I'm going to use them when I get a client and we're going to start working on something. I'm going to pick some of these stories out and put them together. Now, eventually, they might go into a memoir. They might go into something like the 10 Rules of Show Business, and we can pick and choose from that. But that's how I'm developing, and so I have a bunch of stories I can pick from. I mean, Aaron, one of the things I've got stories. I can tell you stories upon stories upon stories. I mean,
oh yeah,
they're just, and I draw on them when the situation is right. And so
well, I think that's
yeah.
It never occurred to me to really build a repertoire or your own personal library of stories to draw back on.
Well, that's now. See, if you take a story, like if you take the week I retired, I took a storytelling class by a guy named Brian Kett. He's a 5-time Moth Grand Champion. Those of you who know the Moth, it's on NPR, and it's across the country. People tell stories twice a month in metropolitan cities, and they take the winners of these story slams, and then once a year they have a champion. And this guy's won it 5 times. So he was doing a storytelling class, and we were working on our structure. And so when you're writing a story, you're really breaking it down so it doesn't ramble. I mean, if I was just to start telling you a story and I hadn't practiced it, we'd be here for 40 minutes because I would have all these different. But when I'm writing a story, right? I wrote a story now, and I've got it down to 850 words, which is 5 minutes. Well, 5.5. But still, I had to trim. Oh, I had to trim some things I loved out of it. But what he said was, well, save that for another story. Just get to the point. So so that's. So it takes a little work to do that. Make sure it's quick. I can tell the Newton and George story pretty quick. I told that because I've told it to employees. When I hired employees, that was the welcome to the company speech. And you're gonna when we would sell Vision Source, I would have different stories for different for different things. I would have an exchange story which would change from time to time. I would have. I loved my optical dream story. I would tell one. It was actually Colin Connors told me this story, and I use it all the time. I don't say it's Colin, but I said, "How'd you like an optical dream?" And he goes like, "Oh, I think it's great. I think it's great." Well, really? But why do you think that? And he goes, "Well, one day it was like Wednesday, and I'm walking through the office, and all of my staff is huddling around this computer. I'm going, what the heck's going on over there? And I walk over, and I get close enough, and I hear them, and they are dividing up the patients to call to get an annual supply of contact lenses. And I stopped in my tracks, and I walked back to my office, and I said, Vision Source. So that's a story. That's a story. And I heard it from. Now that's not how Colin told it. I changed it a little bit.
Yeah, you've made it yours.
Right, but you laughed, you got it, and that's a leave yourself alone and work to be better. Right? We've got a great thing here with Vision Source. Let it do its magic.
Yep.
And you remind, there's the other story I love is on the optical dream, and not the optical dream grand prize, right? When and it used to be that Charles Chop would take the big publisher's clearing house check and bring it to your office if you won the 10 grand.
Yep.
And there was one office I met, and they said, hey, 10 grand, I get it. If we win, I get it. That's the doctor that said that. I get it.
Yeah.
But then there was this one office, it was in I don't know what state it was in, but she told the staff, hey, that 10,000 comes in, you guys split it. And there was a staff of 5. And when Charles pulled into the parking lot and he started walking toward the office with the check, they could see it, and tears and hugs and amazing cultural moment. I would tell that story to people who were thinking about joining Vision Source when I talked about the optical dream, because that's magic. That's kind of the magical moment. It's magic because of what that owner optometrist did. She let Vision Source do its magic. They did the hard work.
Yeah.
But then boom, it happened, and I get choked up when I tell this story. And it's
amazing.
You got to think about the things, Aaron, in the practice. Anyone else listening, you think about the things that happen in your practice and other people's practice. When you go to Vision Source meetings, listen to what they say, and some those are stories, and you can retell them in a way that work. You can retell them to your patients to get them for a better patient outcome. Let's call it that. Not selling them another product.
Of course,
Let's get them toward a better patient outcome. Let's help them make that next step secure. But it's up to you to kind of build that story. Keep it short. Don't bore them. It's an initial action. Like Colin, how do you like the optical dream? I love the optical dream. I saw my staff. It looked like they were fooling around. They weren't fooling around. Wow, it's amazing. And he goes down, and I make sure all of my offices do it.
Yeah, well, I like that, and I love how you started to bring it full circle, talking about how it's we really want to hear that struggle, right? It's the happy pony land where it's all rainbows and unicorns and flowers is great, but we can't live there all the time. We want to hear the struggle. We want to hear the ups and the downs, because I think we relate to that. And what you've really helped me with in this conversation. I have my interns record exams with their cell phones, getting the patient's permission, because I want them to see how they're interacting, how they're behaving. But I don't think I've phrased it in a way that I can now to say, hey, I want you to listen to yourself telling the story of the exam. I want you to listen to yourself telling the story live to see if that's how you really want to come across. And so here's your gift. It's on your phone. You can watch it on your own. And what you love to do more of it. What you don't like what you see, figure out how to adjust it so that you are always a better storyteller in that exam room.
I think the key about the storytelling, again, it's not it's kind of sunshine and rainbows what we're going to tell, but at the end of the story, I'm grateful. You should, if you are grateful, or the main character you're telling about is grateful it happens. I'm certain that Keith Jarrett is delighted that he played that rehearsal piano.
Yeah.
Right? But,
oh, yeah.
But he's grateful. We're grateful. We're grateful it happened. And so I think that's one of the most important things you can do is to make sure you show that gratitude.
Absolutely. I think that's a perfect point to end the discussion on. Ride the up and down, but end on that gratitude. And with that, David, I am really appreciative of the time that we got to spend to work together, to learn from you, and look forward to hearing all the cool things you're going to be doing with Edler Communications.
Well, thank you so very much, Aaron, for the opportunity. I hope I get the opportunity to speak and interact with Vision Source more. It's home for me. I certainly know a lot about it. Yeah. Hopefully, I can do that.
Yeah. Well, clearly you bleed Vision Source gold, so we appreciate that. Thanks, David.
Thank you so much, Aaron.